How does the box office really work? How much money do movie studios and distribution actually really make back from the theaters that screen their films? I've been doing this on YouTube for nearly 5 years, and just a little over 3 years ago, I did a video just like that. Matter of fact, I just reposted it on my YouTube community last night. How the box office really works. Well, I encourage everybody to go back and watch that. It's a great podcast. You can spend 30 minutes learning pretty much everything you need to know with real data and real numbers. I felt like maybe it was time for a bit of a follow-up. There's a lot of debate going on out there because of the new Superman movie. And you've got the James Gunn fans out there versus the Snyder Bros. And one side is saying that Superman is a massive flop. The other side is saying it's fine, it made money. Well, who's right? We don't do trust me, bro, when it comes to data and analysis here on Valiant Renegade. That may be fine for other places, but we like to pull in the actual numbers because they are available out there if you know where to look. A few years ago, nobody out there had covered things like earnings calls for Hollywood entertainment companies or even places like AMC or Cinemark Theaters where we get a lot of this data. And as we've said many times in the past, even Deadline magazine uses very similar metrics to what we do here at Valiant Renegade because, frankly, they're looking at a lot of the same numbers we are. And if you want to be up to speed to be able to intelligently converse with folks out there saying that this happened or this movie or that movie was or was not successful, well, watch that video that we had posted 3 years ago. We'll leave a link to it in this video description, and watch this one as well for a bit of an update. Because you see, over time, some of those numbers that we talked about 3 years ago have really changed. And that has to do a lot with the modern post-COVID era and what has happened with streaming over the last several years. It's changed theatrical windowing, and ergo, it has changed the amount of money that a lot of theaters are paying back on average to a lot of these film distribution companies and studios. Whether it's the stories you hear about how theaters pay out 60, 70, 80, 90% in the first weekend, or let's just use the quote-unquote industry standard of 2.5 times production or whatever. Sorry, but it's all absolutely nonsense because the data is out there and we're going to show it to you right now.
Renegade Online.
Revenues, admissions, the first line, $762.6 million. Go down to operating costs and expenses a few lines down. What's the first thing? Film exhibition, $392 million. If you take out your calculators right now, you'll find that number comes to about 51%. Now, that's for their entire global operation. And as we've always made clear, you get paid back more in the U.S. for your film's exhibition than you do in international countries because there's additional layers of distribution. There's additional layers of regulatory red tape, taxes, things of this nature that all come into play. So you're going to get a lower yield back internationally. The reason that we always say on Valiant Renegade and most other places that understand how things work is that if you have a film that has a relatively even-keeled box office, hey, we did $100 million in the U.S. and in Canada, North America, and we did $100 million internationally, not including China. $200 million. And that's why we say, hey, Disney, Warner Brothers, Sony, Paramount, Universal, Lionsgate, whomever, hey, out of that $200 million, they probably got back right around about $100 million, about half of that. Right? We can't be exact because everything's a little bit different, but right around on average, half of that came back. And the numbers basically come by and large from right here. We can see it plainly. Now, again, I said this includes both domestic and international because they don't give us a breakdown anymore like they used to. Now, what they have done on the quarterlies is they have obscured some of the data to kind of conceal, I guess, some industry stuff they didn't want to let out. You can see here attendance in U.S. markets, average ticket prices. They give you all this breakdown. We covered some of this before the actual call. But if you look here, you can see revenues broken out for U.S. and international markets, although it's all lumped together. Food and beverage, popcorn, and movie tickets, everything else. You come down here, they actually give you, if I can find it real quick, U.S. markets, international markets. Again, it's total revenues. That's food and beverage, movie club, ticket sales, everything is lumped into that $1.1 billion figure in the quarter that you see there in that first column, 3 months ended U.S. 2025. You go over to international, you can see the 283 million largely coming from their Odeon subsidiary that operates mainly in Western Europe. When you go down, you can still see breakout of film exhibition costs, but now the revenues for the U.S. have been consolidated and the international markets have been, when I say consolidated, again, consolidated food, beverage, ticket, everything. So it makes it harder to break that out. However, this is what I want to show you guys. You want a clean window. Here it is. There's a little trick you have to know with AMC. The window into AMC's financial soul. The annual report, the Form 10K. This one was for the entire fiscal year of 2024. January 1st, 24 to December 31st of 2024. You want to find out exactly what the movie theater industry, the bellwether of the industry, and I promise you, AMC, Cinemark's Ultimate Numbers, all these other major players. Again, when you put the top 5, 6, 7 theater chains together, you're talking about probably 75 to 80% of the total number of screens and the market out there that generates the revenue that you see us report every weekend when the numbers or Box Office Mojo comes out with it. Check this out. U.S. markets, international markets. Do we have a breakout this time? Yes. Admissions in 2024 was 1.96 billion in the United States. 1.96 billion. What were the film exhibition costs? In other words, what was the amount of money that of the $1.916 billion that AMC took in movie ticket retail box office sales? How much did they write a check back to Sony, Warner Brothers, Disney, Lionsgate, Paramount, Universal, on down the list? $988 million. Here we go. What is the haul from the domestic box office? So if we've got $988.8 million divided into 1.916.7 billion, 51.5%. 51, let's round it up, 51.6% to be exact, was the average return. What they paid back in the United States, in North America, that's just the U.S., the average box office haul was 51.6% of the gate. But Valiant, no, that's not true. See, they pay out 90% in the first week, and then like by week 7, it goes down to 50. No, that's wrong. It's right here. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't pay a bump in the first week. They might pay a bump for the first 3 days. The bottom line is, at the end of a theatrical run, and this percentage has been exceptionally consistent within a range of 52, 51, 52, and as high as 54.5, even pre-COVID in 2019, when the theatrical revenues went off the scale, when you had Endgame and all that other stuff that year, it was still only about 54% U.S. or North America. 54. And remember, the big giant blockbusters are the outsized influence on this pay scale. Oh, but they have movies that come out and, they're little small indie things and they're such a teeny tiny percentage of the box office. You realize the top 20 films every year are responsible for well north of half of the entire box office. Again, this is about weighted average. This is about scale. Okay. So less than 52% in 2024 in the US was returned to distribution from exhibition. And it's not like the other major theater chains are going to have radically different numbers than this. They're going to be within a couple of percent. maybe a little bit more, but within a couple of percent. All right, now let's look at international. Ready? We're going to do the same thing internationally. What was, and we already know it's lower, 2024 had total admissions of $643.8 million, or at least with a foreign currency exchange rate, we get it back in US dollars, 643. What were the film exhibition costs? A mere $250 million. So 250.4 divided into 643.8. The international box office return from exhibition to distribution was 38.9%. 38.9%. But Valiant just makes up numbers. There's no evidence. Valiant's just giving you the trust me bro numbers. I've been told this routinely on social media, on X, by idiots. Here comes Cinemark, the second largest theater chain with Regal in them, pretty close. Let me show you something. Cinemark likes to obscure their data a little bit more. Admissions for Cinemark, 467 million. This is the same quarter that ended June 30th that we just covered with AMC. 467 million. Cost of operations. Look at film rentals. 270 million. Now, if you put those numbers together, you're going to come up with around 57%. Aha! See, they're paying back almost 60% at Cinemark. Read it again. Film rentals and what? Advertising. That's right. This is not just exhibition costs. This is not just rentals. AMC compiles their advertising expense into the rentals line to basically help conceal some, private corporate data. They may not want everybody knowing what kind of deals they have out there. They don't have to report it cleanly. That's not what the SEC cares about. If you go over to AMC's, though, they give you a clean rentals, and guess what? Things like advertising are lumped in under a whole different section under SG&A, selling, general, and administrative. But that's not what Cinemark does. So all the ads you see for come visit Cinemark this weekend and watch Fantastic Four. Check out the new PLF screens at Cinemark. Every ad you see pop up when you're online or whatever, that's loaded in, I promise you, probably of that $270 million. That difference between the 51.5% or almost 52% that we just calculated with AMC and the roughly 58% that you're 57% you're seeing here, that 5% gap is probably all their advertising, because it says and advertising. I promise you the numbers are not that far off between Cinemark and AMC. They are both probably getting almost the exact same deal. This is just the numbers. This is the data. And like we always say, even when we cover the Paramount earnings calls out there, the Paramount earnings calls pretty much confirm. Paramount, because they have a line item for theatrical distribution, it's roughly half of what their total box office was for that fiscal quarter. The myth of 60%, 80%, 90% the first week, you make up whatever numbers you want to, but the reality is what I just showed you. Sorry. Y'all want to keep playing pretend and asking Grok, is this true? Go for it. I'll just keep laughing at you.
Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.